Greetings, everyone, and welcome. And as you can see, I have the thumbnail in place already. Mission accomplished. I do not know how today, March the 27th, does not change the war in Ukraine forever. I do not know or understand how the relationships between the United States and the European Union and Great Britain and other nations can, in the near term, be rectified to the point where the support will be global for Ukraine as we stand against that Russian invasion and the evil actions of Vladimir Putin. In fact, what we're seeing is exactly the opposite. Vladimir Putin basically is accomplishing the mission he wants, and that is to divide the entire world. Now, I will also say at the same time, Donald Trump is doing a phenomenal job helping him in destroying those relationships himself. Now, of course, that lends the question: are they going to partner together and work together? I hope not. I don't know, though. But for sure, today is a game changer. And I have 5 videos that I'm going to share with you and the statements from Zelenskyy today. We already know that the truce has been broken per Vladimir Zelenskyy. And I can tell you that as the time of this recording, about 15 minutes ago, Poltava was struck very, very intently, and the city has been partially de-energized, which means you have broken the truce in Poltava as well. I want to jump right in. I see the mission accomplished here from Vladimir Putin and from Russia. Donald Trump and his administration, the way they are leading the United States right now, is assisting in that division around the world. So today was the coalition meeting. The coalition of the willing met. Incredible statements coming out of that from President Vladimir Zelenskyy, from President of France Macron, from Rutte, and you're going to hear them all. In fact, I don't even know how we can listen to these videos that I'm going to play for you and not conclude that the world and the relationships in the world changed today. And I'm going to ask you, drop a comment. What are your thoughts about this? I want to start first with Zelenskyy. Some of his main statements today about the coalition of the willing, and these are quotes. The summit was very motivating. The leaders are not abandoning us, but will support Ukraine. This is a bad signal for Putin. Quote number 2. In case you were wondering, we are not going to surrender, give up our lands and independence. Putin simply cannot do this to us. We are not alone. Ukraine is a strong country that wants peace, but a stable one that will last a long time. This is important for us and our children. And we know, folks, even though it has been stated publicly that there were no territorial conversations happening in Saudi Arabia, we know exactly what Russia wants. They want, at the minimum, the Lugansk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and Donetsk regions, and Crimea. That's at the minimum. We're already hearing the talk, even from the Ukrainian military, of buildups where it looks there's a high probability that Russia will continue and increase offensive in the southern front, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and in the north near Sumy and Kharkiv. We're going to see, but it's out there and it's from Ukraine. Zelenskyy continued with his main statements today, and then we're going to get to the videos, guys. He says, quote, there will be no lifting of sanctions on the Russian Federation while the war continues. This is a common signal from European countries. So he's stating opposite here, representing European voices as the president of Ukraine, and they speak for themselves. You'll hear it in just a moment. But no easing of the sanctions, no lifting of the sanctions. And this is the opposite narrative that Trump is trying to push. We know that the Treasury Secretary of the United States says, well, we might lessen the sanctions. We might strengthen the sanctions. We're going to do something. But we know the talk has been out there about easing sanctions. That was what the Kremlin pushed back after the truce talks there in Saudi Arabia. Reconnect us to SWIFT, release the sanctions on fertilizer, release the sanctions on agricultural products, etc., etc. Now, here's another telling statement. Quote, I'm not planning a trip to the United States yet. Great. Because the European Union needs to stand up. Because United States is not going to lead properly in the war in Ukraine and bringing it to a just end. That is obvious. He then talked about the terms of the mineral agreement, and I was going to talk about that, but the terms are so crazy. It is the United States, what we're seeing so far, and I'm not going to report on it because I can't factually lay it out for you, but I've got plenty of sources that are saying out of Ukraine that it's just absolutely unacceptable what the United States is offering on the mineral agreement. And guys, once again, I'm here to tell you, there's no mineral agreement signed. It's not even close to being signed. The parties, Ukraine and the United States, are on different planets when it comes to the mineral agreement. Zelenskyy then calling out Trump directly and said Trump must be stronger in relation to the owner of the Kremlin. Of course, a direct statement there against Vladimir Putin. He said Europe will be represented by France and Britain at the talks to end the war in Ukraine. Of course, France and Britain are both nuclear states. And then finally, he said no one will give our lands to Putin or Russia. They have violated international law and must be held accountable. No one will give our lands. Let me translate that for you. The United States will not give our lands away. Donald Trump will not give our lands away. So let's go to video number 1, and we're going to talk. Here is Zelenskyy talking about the sanctions.
There won't be any lifting of sanctions on Russia until this war ends with a just peace. This is a crucial signal, a united message from European countries. Yes, not just EU countries, but from European nations as a whole. And this is significant. Secondly, there are new support packages. Again, I won't go into details, but some European countries have confirmed this.
There you have it. Zelenskyy directly stating no lifting of the sanctions. And he specifically, they're talking from the European perspective. The United States is going to do what they want to do, but after the meeting of the coalition today, there's going to be no lifting of the sanctions as long as the war is going on. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you are seeing Vladimir Putin riding on a Tyrannosaurus Rex to my left through the Kremlin, the Red Square area. Why? Because, guys, I'm telling you, I don't see how the war doesn't change today. I hope you've made it to this far in the video because A, Zelenskyy confirmed the breaking of the truce. B, Europe has stood up strong today, especially with the leader of France, Rutte, making very direct, bold statements. Starmer, Scholz, all making bold, strong statements. I'm going to play 2 of those for you. But ladies and gentlemen, Zelenskyy is just calling it the way it is now, and it needs to be done because we need to shock the United States into reality. You're either going to get on board and help and not try to be Putin's friend, and end this war with a just end for Ukraine and respect international law and international relations, or you're not. And I think it's time for the game to stop being played by the United States. So buttons are being pushed today. Buttons are being pushed. I just don't see how things can stay the same. Going to be interesting what comes out of the United States in the next few days. So here it is. Yeah, Putin on a dinosaur.
Putin wants war. What can someone who wants war say in peace talks? I'm not one to sit quietly or swallow his narratives. I don't care about his Crimean antics or fancy caviar. Maybe he impresses others. But to me, they're dinosaurs. You get it? They just want to devour us.
Do you get it? They're nothing but dinosaurs, and all they want to do is devour. Will that message get to the White House and to the United States? I hope so. I hope so. I mean, they're too busy right now trying to clean up their own messes. So I don't know what they're going to hear or not, but they need to hear that. But I promise you one thing, Vladimir Putin is going to hear it and has already heard it. Dinosaurs, all they want to do is consume Ukraine. The message and the narrative very strong today. Additionally, this can be considered a little bit of trolling just because of the eyeballs there at the end. It's Andrei Yermak who put out a tweet, and all the tweet had on it was the flags of the 31 nations who are the coalition of the willing. Of course, that's from the meeting today, so I'm not going to read too much into it. Of course, you do not see the United States flag there because the U.S. was not at the meeting, but let's just push the narrative a little bit more. These are the nations that are committed as the coalition of the willing to stand with us and to fight with us. Come on, America, get to it. I know Ukrainian culture, and I'm telling you, The eyeballs there, the salute, the thumbs up at the eyeballs. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Donald Trump, United States. What you gonna do when the law comes looking for you? I can tell you right now, I truly believe today the war changes. It has to. Too much has unfolded, and we're going to get to that. Two important leaders. Of course, the president of France, Macron, and there on the left is Rutte with NATO. Macron making the statement, it's time for Europe to recognize that we may have to go alone. Check it out. As I told you several weeks ago, we are at a decisive moment in history when, for the very first time in a long time, we have to prepare ourselves for a possible scenario which is not the one we are hoping for. But nonetheless, we have to be ready to act totally alone for ourselves. It's called leaving the state of geopolitical minority. It's a good thing for Europe. It's a good thing for Europe, and we might as well recognize that we live in a different era. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not just some politician from some parliament somewhere. That's the president of France. Additionally, Mark Rutte, you talking about normalizing relations. Because, see, this is what Trump says. I'm a friend. Let me quote it right. I'm a friend with Vladimir. I'm a friend with Kim Jong-un. I'm a friend with Xi Jinping. Let's get these relations back to normal. In fact, this is the narrative that the Trump administration touts, that the Biden administration destroyed all the relationships, and we need to normalize our relationships with Vladimir Putin and Russia. But what he doesn't and they do not get is you're trying to normalize your relations with a terrorist and a war criminal. It is not possible. Mark Rutte. Now, I know he can say one thing in the White House, but today in Europe, this is what he said. And I hope these messages are getting back to the Trump administration. Here's Rutte.
There will be no normalization of relations with Russia when the war is over. That will not happen. That will take decades because there is a total lack of confidence. As I said in my speech, even if the war comes to a conclusion, the Russian threat is still there. They are building a war economy. They are spending so much money on defense. They are producing in 3 months an ammunition what the whole of the alliance is producing in a year. We are ramping up our ammunition production. Luckily, we have to. So there's no way that we can normalize relations with Russia after the war is over. You hope in many decades from now and post-Putin that there might be some, but I mean, I'm not optimistic.
How does the war not change today? Not possible. It must be post-Putin. It may be in decades, but it's not possible. I don't see it. These guys are telling it how it is. This is exactly, though, what Putin wants. But this is what Ukraine needs. Europe to stand up, strong, bold narratives. Zelenskyy leading by example with extremely bold, almost trolling statements today, but they need to be stated for some shock reality. Because, ladies and gentlemen, there's no way you can look at all of these videos today and not say, these statements, they're all today, that the war in Ukraine is going to change today. It's not possible. Now, as I close out with the videos, I promised you 5 videos. The 5th one I want to share with you is actually an older video earlier in the war in Ukraine, propagandist, but it needs to be restated. Today is the perfect day that I play this video for you again, because this is the reality of the Russian viewpoint 100%. And this is what the United States does not understand at all. Right here.
Problem with everyone in Ukraine is they've been led to believe that Ukrainians are fighting Russians for independence. But Americans think they're fighting to become dependent on America. Ukrainians can't grasp that Americans don't care about Russian-Ukrainian relations. They benefit from Ukrainians fighting on.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And I can't say how that's not the truth. I mean, excuse me, Americans don't get it. Ukrainians, he's stating, don't get it. But the Ukrainians get it. They tell it every day. But the Americans, the reality is, they believe, and I'm an American, The benefit to the United States while Ukraine is fighting Russia is benefiting the United States. I know that's what they're thinking. You know that's what they're thinking. And there is one other true statement in there that man made. The United States obviously doesn't care what happens in the war in Ukraine. Let me be fair about that. Americans do. Americans do. But there are many, led by the Trump administration, that are obviously careless about Ukraine. And I think that's very fair. Today, the world is changing. Too many things have been stated and too many things have unfolded. We shall see. And I'm looking forward to the American response, if they even give one. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for sharing, liking, and commenting and helping us get this message out. What are your thoughts on some of these videos that I shared? Drop a message in the comments and we'll be back. There's a lot of stuff going on.